You see, the credibility of the white paper essentially established the credibility of the economist community of Bangladesh. We have shown that the community, a professional community of Bangladesh, has all the competence to deal with such complex issues and can deliver in the high quality on time. Corruption depth is very high. You see, even if we get all these numbers, I will give you the actual numbers. We could have built, 22 Padda bridges in 10 with the money. Yeah. We could have built 16 metro rails. What is a white paper and why did the idea came to my mind? Right. The idea was to have what I call an understanding of ground zero. The nature of the government or the nature of the economy the government is going to inherit. So what would be their challenges in terms of taking the economy forward? So in order to understand that situation, one needs to do a transparency exercise. And for that transparency exercise, one needs to look at all the existing data and also those data which were not available publicly, and also talk to the specific interlocutors, the stakeholder groups who are knowledgeable in these areas, and to come to a conclusion, what is the status of the economy, what are the challenges, and where we need to focus in the near future. So then why the instrument of white paper? The white paper comes more from the British tradition, the British Parliament. So when you have a problem and there is no immediate or obvious solution, then you mobilize a group of experts to look at the problem and give an opinion. Right. It may be one opinion, it may be more than one opinion, depending upon the group, how do they think or look at the problem. The advantage of having a white paper is that the white paper is commissioned by the authority, maybe the parliament, maybe the government, but those who write the paper, they write it as independent experts. Okay. So it is commissioned by the government, but the report is not government's report. Right. So the paper which we have written, although the Honorable Chief Advisor has commissioned us, but the report does not belong to him. Report belongs to the authors. Okay. So they remain responsible for whatever is said over there, not the government. The other side of the advantage of the white paper is that whatever solutions are being given, the government is not obliged to take them. Okay. Government also has the flexibility of implementing whatever they want in however they want. So these are the two parts of the white paper, flexibility and advantages in these cases. The white paper, what we have prepared, is what we call is a heuristic exercise, in the sense that it depends on the existing data and we critically look at it, because I will tell you what data was, what is the villain of the piece. Right. And then we also look at some of the unpublished documents which were available with the government, which was not public earlier. And we also debrief some of the critical interlocutors of policies to hear the internal stories in order to interpret the issues what we have in hand. So in that sense, white paper, what we have done is looks at the past, what has happened. Right. But at the same time, it also looks at the issues, why it happened. So what happened, why it happened. It is less about what needs to be done. For what needs to be done, the reform designs, we have indicated at our end, but it is a totally another exercise to be done on that. So now the white paper is done. It is with the government, and we have received extremely positive responses to it. People across the country, across the world, including the global media, has taken note of it. But I have another problem with the paper. The problem with the paper is that some of the readership are making confusion regarding the data. Say, for example, to give an example, we have said $16 billion per year was illicit financial flow. And so one very knowledgeable person comes up and says, it is such a big number. How can it happen? And the government was, its own public budget is much, much, much smaller than that. Yeah. The problem is that this gentleman who says that has very little understanding. The economists never deal with the absolute numbers. They deal with relatives. So the amount what we are saying is only 2.4% of the GDP. For him, it is a big number. But in comparison to GDP, it is only 2.4%. The global average is 3 to 4%. So we were still below the stealing record globally in that. So this is one of the interpretative problem. The other problem, for example, they are saying that if the budget is so low, how could so much money being stolen or being plundered? They don't understand that the plundering, the looting has not only happened from the budget. There's so much of over-invoicing in exports. The money under invoicing of exports which have not come back the money, it is there. It is the capital market which was there from where the money was looted as well. And there are also private corruption going on in various ways. So the whole system was so politicized. And the narrative was that we were a very high-performing economy. But all our signals, symptoms, were telling us that this is not true. Your Daily Star's record will tell what we have spoken about over the decades. It did not really tally or were consistent with the development strategy or the development performance which the government was talking about. In fact, our white paper, name of the white paper is Dissection of a Development Narrative. Okay. Dissection of a Development Narrative. So what narrative they were saying, whether it is correct, that was something of a great policy interest. Otherwise, the government, the new government, will not be able to take policy measures in order to correct those failings which were there in that way. So what were the failings? You see, you had a high growth, but very low private investment. Right. You had high growth, no tax collection. Right. You have a high growth, but very little money going to health, education, social protection. So you have a high growth when the income inequality was increasing like anything. So you already see the malices, you see the symptoms of the disease. It was for us to unearth that one in order to help the government. So then you want to say and this has a very important political implication. Right. The political implication of it, if the growth narrative is not correct, then what type of politics really drove that kind of a narrative in order to justify the legitimacy of the regime? The deficit of democratic accountability in Bangladesh in this period may be traced back to the elections of 2018. We had 3 national elections which were very bad. And as a result, the accountability process eroded, if not broke down. And in order to fulfill the development, in order to account for the deficit in democratic accountability, democratic legitimacy, the government opted for, which all other centralized authoritarian governments do all over the world, is for visible indicators of development. So you have a shortfall in your democracy, you try to create a story about development to feed into that, and you create your legitimacy. And then you sell that story outside the world and the outside world globally and try to secure then global legitimacy. Because what you don't have in the country, you try to secure it from outside. This is the story of the last government. And whilst you do that very centralized authoritarian system without any democratic pluralism, what happens is that in order to have those projects, you have to create a preferred group of businessmen. And those preferred group of businessmen, after some time, link up with the political elements and some bureaucrats along with it. So they created a triumvirate of politician, the businessmen, and the bureaucrats. They together wants to run the country. And that is what creates the crony capitalism. And that crony capitalism, but the tragedy of it is that the ruling person in the centralized structure thinks that they have he or she has created a group which will serve the regime.
Right.
But after some time, what happens is that group becomes so powerful that they start running the ruler. This is the beginning, what we call I have called it the transition from crony capitalism to a kleptocratic state.
Yeah.
Kleptocratic state is a state structure when it is ruled by a group of thieves. And now I see, in reality, it is a kleptocratic state, a country which is run by the thieves. And the thieves are together the bureaucrats, the politician, and some businessmen. And they are the one which groups. And the interesting part of a kleptocracy is that they are not confined to one sector. They will be in the energy sector. They will be also in ICT. They will be also in the banking sector. They will be in the offshore drilling. They will be, you see that they are creating universities, private universities. Right. They will have television channels. Right. You see, they are everywhere. They are like an octopus. They're taking hold of the state and strangling it for their own interest. They will influence the policies. You remember the case or when the Banking Companies Act was sent to the Parliament. Yeah. It's half a minute they did an amendment in order to increase the tenure of the private shareholders or the sponsor directors, number of terms they have. They can be
number of directors from a family.
Exactly. How did they do that? You see, this is how the oligarchs work. Yeah. They take over the legislature on that. In this highly centralized system, authoritarian system, all space for pluralism or dissent are gone.
Yeah.
So, and your state structure is not working. And you see how the system works? You did not invest in education, and you created a system where students were coming out with very bad education,
right.
Very low quality education. Right. Even we have to hire people from outside in order to supplement them, substitute them. And on the other hand, there is no private investment. Right. So no decent jobs are being created. All jobs are in the informal sector. Right. So here you have a group of young people with degrees but no jobs.
Right.
And here is the private sector which is not creating jobs at all. So where are the only jobs? The only jobs are government jobs. And why did they become so active about the quota? To get some competition, at least in that case. Right. And we should understand where it was coming from. All the students' movement, what we saw, is a direct outcome, fallout of the bad development experience which we did for 15 years. People don't understand. They think, why this quota issue? In order to understand the quota dynamics, they will all have to go back and see what type of investment we did in our education and why our private sector did not invest. So we will have to get to those answers over there. All will come back to your development narrative which was there. And all these are there in my white paper.
True.
White paper is not an investigative. White paper is a research document.
Right.
There is a difference between investigative journalism and a research document, which is based on multidisciplinary, multi-methodological approach.
Okay.
So what do? We take into account all the existing data and interpretation along with that. We try to look at also from other sources of information how to interpret this data.
Right.
And also you talk to people who had been part of the process, and you yourself have been studying the process for so long. So together you come to a decision where you lay out what methodology you follow.
Right.
You see?
Right.
What a journalist does is talk to somebody and quotes the person.
Right.
But we don't do that. Okay. What we do, we check out one source of information against the other, and see whether we can put together a methodology which will allow us to come to the closest possible figure, because these are not direct empirical observation. These are estimates. Estimates. So anybody who wants to contest our number will have to come with another methodology of estimating and say, this is our estimate which is better than yours. We will have to be there. Till that you do that, you cannot just say that this number is guesstimate or this number is without basis or something like that. Because in every number, we have given you the methodology, how we have derived this number. So you have to go through the methodology and tell us that this methodology has this flaw. And my methodology is this, it gives a different number. Till you have a different number, you have no right to contest my numbers. So you will have to come with a number and tell me that you have derived that number in a much more solid way than mine. Only then I will accept yours. Till that time, these are hearsay. Corruption depth is very high. You see, even if we get all these numbers, I will give you the actual numbers. We could have built, 22 Padda bridges in tens with the money. We could have built 16 metro rails along with that. We could have doubled the allocation for the education and health for these countries in that way. First of all, it was not our job to suggest recommendation, but we have done. The 5 issues which we have mentioned. Number 1 is what are the areas which demands maximum attention in terms of reform. And that also comes from our report. According to our report, the topmost sector which has done the maximum looting is your banking sector. So the banking reform is must. The second most highest sector was your public works programs of physical infrastructure. So your ADP projects, review, your good feasibility studies, all these things are very important. The government is trying to do that. And the third area is power sector, energy sector. The government has annulled some old laws, bad laws. It has opened up the LNG sector. So it is doing all those 3. And the fourth sector was the ICT. And it was a very interesting case how the stealing in ICT took place, which was quite different from other areas. You sell a 10 taka app for 2,000 taka, and you bring in second generation apparatus and sell it in the price of the fifth generation. And you will still have one of the lowest, internet speed in the country and the highest cost over there. This is what is the situation after all this so-called digital Bangladesh. Very smart. ICT was a very smart Bangladesh way of stealing. It is the smartest stealing process which you would see over there. So this we have suggested reform. The second thing which I have suggested is that it is time to bring together all the things which are happening. There is no documentation. To bring together, consolidate, and on the basis of the consolidation of the first 5-6 months, you project your work plan for the next 6 months. A country cannot go on day-to-day basis on different sectors happening every other day on ad hoc basis without a coherent plan. So I insisted that take stock of the first 6 months and project for the next 6 months till the national budget. Then on the third, we have suggested what approach should be the budget, how we should be increasing the fiscal space so that we can really do the public expenditure in the right way. And the public expenditure should signal how different it is from the past. So essentially your health sector, your social protection, your education should get good money, not for building buildings, but for really giving proper education, the soft part on that. What also I have suggested in the white paper is that the government is not here for the 5-year term. Right. The government has a limited term, which is a political decision to come. But investment, economic management cannot go on day-to-day basis decision and even on 6 months decision. Right. So what I have suggested to create a 2-year rolling plan. 2-year rolling plan which will tell you what is the midterm projection, where we want to achieve. Say, for example, the government is telling that these are the reforms which we want to achieve in the constitution or local government or elections or police or anti-corruption. But what about economy? So who will give us the picture of the economy? I don't see that. So what I have suggested to the government, create a midterm plan, create a 6-monthly plan and implement that, and there is accountability. Please remember, this is not an elected government.
Right.
So you'll have to create an accountability mechanism. Right. What is the accountability mechanism? Accountability mechanism is an enlightened way of creating discipline for yourself. Right. So that discipline has to be created. I have also suggested that the LDC graduation must happen.
Right.
We should not delay that.
Right.
Because the problems which we see with the with the economy, these are not graduation problems. These are development problems. It will stay with us. So there is a smooth transition strategy document. We need to implement that. We need to integrate that with the midterm planning and do the structural transformation, productivity growth, also compliance with intellectual property right, labor standards, so that we can negotiate with the other rest of the world. Bangladesh is going for voluntary national review this year. So we need to know what happened to the left behind people. Those people were discriminated and marginalized. So this is also the expediting the SDGs, so health, education for the poor, the disadvantaged community of the society. And last but not the least, I've suggested to hold a development forum meeting in early next year. Who are the development? The governments, as you can see, there are a lot of goodwill, foreigners, the goodwills. But they are all being separately negotiated, etc., not within a framework. So I have suggested there are 4 groups of foreigners here, interlocutors. One, the traditional development finance provider. So including, for example? Starting from World Bank, IMF, to all the bilaterals, FCDO, USAID and others. So you have the traditional foreign development finance provider. Then you have those who give us the market, special market preferences for our exports. European Union, Canada, Australia, even India, China. So we need to talk to them, negotiate with them that what will happen after the graduation and how can we improve our market situation and getting the rules of origin, labor standard, all these issues online on that. The third group of people are the foreign direct investors. We did not get enough foreign direct investment. They are all complaining about their work permit for their foreigners, how they transfer of their royalties from Bangladesh. So we need to really talk to them and provide them an environment, because foreign investment can play a big role now when there is a private investment shortfall and government investment is also undercut. And the last and the fourth group of foreign interlocutors are those countries who are giving us the market for our migrant workers. So those countries, will have to understand what are the market demands over there, what skills are required, and what are their complaints. Why Bangladesh has so high cost of migration? It is 3 times more than Nepal. You see, because the numbers are still much above the threshold now. We are still eligible for that. And even if our numbers which have been cooked up earlier, you still don't have those numbers in the international level. So the international committee where I sit, we won't really consider the white paper report. We will always wait till the government has come out with a revised number. So that's on that. And then I always say there is a political issue over there. If a graduation decision taken by the earlier government and we fail to deliver that, you understand what will be the political comment? That I left a very good economy and they have squared it up. That will be the answer. So there is a political dimension to that. So in general, I don't think technically it is, other than the exporting group, I don't think there is anybody who is really asking for deferment over there. Those who want to have only free preferences, they are the ones who are talking about it. Look at what they did. Last year, again coming back to the oligarchs story. Last year, the government reduced the incentives for the garments people.
Right.
Remember?
In January this year.
How many weeks they could sustain? They changed it within a month.
Right.
Because how many were there in the parliament?
Yeah.
And what was the influence? It was the right decision of the government to sequentially cut down the incentives. As after graduation, we won't be able to do that. So, but we could not sustain. So we started to prepare ourselves. Best thing, don't get distracted by all these words. We should all focus how to graduate smoothly and sustainably. The issue is that it has come to an unsustainable level. If it goes to every year $1 billion more, it will 3 billion, 4 billion, 5 billions. It is not sustainable for Bangladesh to do those things. You will end up by borrowing more into servicing the old contracts. So I think it is almost time. We will have to look into those people who prepared the debt sustainability figures earlier. You see, those who prepared the 8th five-year plan and gave us those targets, 40,000 megawatt of electricity necessary. You'll have to find them and ask them where did that get the number from. Because they gave a projection that 40,000 megawatts will be necessary with 9% growth every year. And how many thousand megawatts we have installed? More than 30,000 megawatt. How much we are using? We are not using even the half of it. Right. But in the process, we have invested and stolen money by creating the capacities. So similarly, in this particular case, you will see what happens is on how do we move forward on these issues, is that the debt servicing liability has been created so much and the assessment were so much wrong because they all calculated as a share of GDP. Right. But that was a wrong indicator. The indicator should be how much foreign currency we generate in order which is available to service our debts. Your serviceability, your capacity to service is a more important indicator. And it is all in foreign currency. Right. So as it stands today, I don't think Bangladesh, it is almost becoming inevitable that we will have to renegotiate our debts. It will renegotiating means rescheduling, deferring our payments. It will also may include renegotiating some of the terms of borrowing, including the interest rate. So,
is it possible?
It is possible. It has to be done through the development forum. The country which usually do not come into those development forum, African experience, Zambia for example, is not those who remain outside the G20 and framework of debt management. It is usually Russia and China. So with them we will have to work out more bilaterally if necessary. You see, the credibility of the white paper essentially established the credibility of the economist community of Bangladesh. We have shown that the professional community of Bangladesh has all the competence to deal with such complex issues and can deliver in the high quality on time. We made an assessment how much it would have costed the country if they have done this with consultants. You know, we did it for free. All my members did not getting a sitting allowance. Right. They came in their own car to the meeting. They burned their own fuel. And all my colleagues from CPD, they did not get any salary. They were working with my other projects and at night they were working with this one. So I think this is a milestone of our collective endeavor. It's not the authors, but the society has been made proud that we can deliver on that. Our assessment it was almost $2.5 million. Chief advisor called me, Honorable Chief advisor called, we were having a discussion, the SDG, and then he said, I like your idea about white paper. Why don't you do it for me? I said, okay, I will get a team and etc. And so he asked me, how much it is going to cost you? I said, not a single taka. You don't need to pay me anything on this. So he said, you may not need money. He said that you may not need money. But what about the others? I said, I can tell you with confidence, all my colleagues will do it free of cost. Because this is a unique time of the country. This is a professional opportunity of a lifetime to make a contribution. And we have risen to the occasion. I'm so grateful to my colleagues for that. It's a collective success. It's a national success.